nuclear energy for the first time in 60 years. And Tata Power is moving to break China's hold on solar wafers from right here in Odisha. Math, nukes, solar. Three moves that change who leads the next decade. Here are the headlines. Chinese lab DeepSeek has released DeepSeek Math V2, the world's first open-weight AI model to hit IMO 2025 gold medal level. 5 out of 6 problems. Beat human toppers on Putnam with 118 out of 120. And rival Google's Gemini, DeepThink and OpenAI's GPT-5 class reasoning by using a self-verification loop of generator, verifier, meta-verifier, showing that open self-checking models can now challenge closed US giants on the hardest mathematical reasoning benchmarks and potentially reshape how we build trustworthy AI. India will, for the first time in 60 years, allow private participation in nuclear energy through the upcoming Atomic Energy Bill 2025. Unlocking investment in small modular reactors, advanced reactor technologies, and a competitive domestic nuclear manufacturing ecosystem as the country targets 100 gigawatts nuclear capacity by 2047. And finally, Tata Power is in advanced talks with the Odisha government to set up a 10,000 crore rupees 10 gigawatt ingot and wafer manufacturing plant at a coastal location like Gopalpur or Cuttack, a backward integration move that will feed its 4.55 gigawatt cell module lines, open a new export base, and plug one of India's last big solar supply chain gaps, still dominated by Chinese imports. Good evening. The whale is back, and this time it brought an IMO gold medal. An open source model from China just did something only Google DeepMind and OpenAI could do, and then publish the weights on Hugging Face for free. DeepSeek, the same lab that rattled Nvidia and wiped billions of big tech valuations with its ultra-cheap R1 model, has gone quiet for months. But tonight, the whale is back. They've dropped DeepSeek Math V2, a specialized reasoning model that hit gold medal performance at IMO 2025, which is 5 out of 6 problems, scored 118 out of 120 on the Putnam, beating the best human and, in DeepSeek's own tests, out-reasoned GPT-5 thinking and Gemini 2.5 Pro on hard Olympiad-style math, even on its first try. Oh, and one more thing. This is the world's first open-weight IMO gold medal model. So, is GPT-5 in danger? Google's Gemini DeepThink no longer alone at the top? And is self-verification now the real arms race in AI, not just bigger GPUs? This front page by AIM Network. Let's break down what DeepSeek just did, why every serious AI lab is now watching China, and what this means for the future of reasoning, research, and your next AI product. But before we do that, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Now that you've done it, let's go ahead. DeepSeek has released DeepSeek Math V2, a math specialist model built on top of their experimental DeepSeek V3.2 EXP base. On paper, the numbers are insane. IMO 2025 solves 5 out of 6 problems, which is gold medal tier. China Mathematical Olympiad 2024, again, gold medal level. Putnam 2024, undergrad math, 118 out of 120, higher than the best human score of 90. This puts DeepSeek in the same elite club as Google DeepMind's Gemini DeepThink, OpenAI's internal reasoning model that also hit IMO Gold. The difference? Google and OpenAI are still closed, API only, internal only. DeepSeek just threw an IMO Gold brain on Hugging Face and said, "Here, download it." That's basically a shot fired at the entire closed model business model altogether. Most AI benchmarks today are, well, vibes. You throw a bunch of multiple choice questions or short answers at a model, and if it gets the final number right, you declare victory. That works for AIME, HMMT, school level math. It doesn't work for IMO level problems where there is no simple final answer. You have to produce a rigorous proof. Every step can be right, almost right, or completely made up. Traditional RL methods reward final answer correctness. Models quickly learn a bad habit, bluff your way through the proof, pray the last number matches. DeepSeek Math V2 flips this. It doesn't just ask, "Did you get the right answer?" It asks, "Did you prove it properly? And did you check yourself?" The core idea: reward self-reflection, not confident nonsense. DeepSeek basically put three characters inside this system. The problem solver, which is the generator, writes the proof, also writes a mini self-critique. This step might be wrong. I'm unsure here. The reward function is wired so that admitting doubt plus fixing it later is greater than bluffing confidently and being wrong. So the best strategy is equal to find and correct your own mistakes before submitting. The iron-fisted judge, which is the verifier, a separate model trained just to grade proofs step by step, doesn't care about final answer, scores like an Olympiad jury. 1 is fully rigorous, 0.5 is idea correct, details missing, and 0 is logically broken. The auditor of the judge, the meta verifier, checks whether the judge itself is being lazy or hallucinating. Errors: if the judge flags a mistake that doesn't exist, then the judge gets punished. Wow, how interesting. Anyway, this forces the verifier to be both strict and honest. Over time, this creates a closed loop. The generator keeps discovering new, weird proofs, which leads to exposing blind spots. The verifier gets retrained on these tricky proofs. Resultantly, it becomes sharper. The meta verifier keeps the whole system from gaming its own rules. So, in the last training stages, DeepSeek says human labeling almost disappears. The system is auto-labeling its own hard proofs with a quality that matches expert judges. And this is the real story. Not just AI solves IMO, but AI builds, tests, and upgrades its own reasoning engine. Here's the brutal part. Even if you strip away all of this multi-step thinking and self-correction, even if you say, let's say, no chain of thought, no retries, just answer once, DeepSeek claims Math V2 still beats GPT-5 thinking high from OpenAI, Gemini 2.5 Pro from Google on a tough internal benchmark spanning algebra, geometry, number theory, combinatorics, inequalities, comparable to China's high school math league. So especially in geometry, DeepSeek Math V2 reportedly scores almost 3 times of Gemini. So two things are now true at the same time. It's raw intuition. One short answer is already elite. So when you allow it to think multiple times plus self-verify, its proof quality jumps even higher. And this is exactly how humans work. The first draft usually is intuition. Second draft, self-critique. Not always, but yes. Final draft, carefully checked solution. DeepSeek just showed that self-verification plus test time compute is a more powerful lever than just make the model bigger and hope. That's a direct strategic challenge to the GPT-5 style of more parameters, more data, more GPUs. So why open sourcing this is a big deal? Here's why. DeepSeek just released the weights, shared the training recipe, detailed the verifier plus meta verifier loop. In other words, they handed the entire ecosystem. Here's how you build a model that doesn't just answer, it checks itself. The implications, here they are. Academia and research. You can now fine-tune or extend an IMO gold model for theorem proving, cryptography, physics, formal methods. Long-standing open problems might get AI co-researchers instead of just AI calculators. As far as the enterprise is concerned, this same pattern, which is generator plus verifier plus meta verifier, is not limited to math. So let's think contracts, code, compliance, safety checks, medical guidelines. Any domain where process matters more than the final answer can use this architecture. As for geopolitics and the AI race, Chinese open models already account for a growing slice of global downloads. Now, they also have the first open IMO Gold model. It's a soft power move. You want top-tier reasoning? You will be running Chinese open weights. For closed labs like OpenAI and Google, the risk isn't just competition on leaderboards. It's actually commoditization of core reasoning tricks they hoped would stay proprietary. And now, what this means for builders and more importantly, India. If you're building AI products, here's the quiet but important shift. Until now, open versus closed was mostly about cost, and access. Closed models is equal to best brains. Open models is equal to cheaper, but good enough. DeepSeek is trying to break that assumption. They're saying you can have state-of-the-art reasoning and open weights and low cost. So for India, this matters because our research labs, IITs and deep tech startups can now experiment with an IMO tier reasoning engine without waiting for API access, export approvals or pricing changes. So, as we think about sovereign AI, national research clouds and India A compute mission, models like this are exactly what you want to host locally and extend. The next decade will be won by models that can prove they're right or admit when they're wrong. DeepSeek Math V2 is one of the first serious proofs of that future. And finally, it is time for the front page take. Here it is. DeepSeek just turned mathematical humility into a competitive advantage. Instead of training an AI to be the loudest kid in the class, they trained it to be the one who shows it works, checks its steps, corrects itself, and only then raises its hand. In a world where GPT-5, Gemini, and others are racing to impress with bigger context windows and flashy demos, DeepSeek quietly asked a very different question. Can your model mark its own paper and still pass? If the answer to that becomes yes, at scale, across math, code, law, and science, the real disruption won't just be to GPT-5. It'll be to how we trust AI in the first place. This is Front Page by AIM Network. Like, share, and subscribe if you want to stay ahead of stories like this. And not just which model is smartest this week, but which ones are quietly rewriting the rules of intelligence itself. Good evening. This is Front Page by AIM Network, India's video-first newsroom for AI and tech. Tonight, a historic rewrite of India's nuclear policy, the kind that happens once in a generation. Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced that India will open its nuclear energy sector to private companies, ending a 60-year monopoly that began with the Atomic Energy Act of 1962. And for the first time in independent India's history, the government will table the Atomic Energy Bill 2025 in this winter session of Parliament, a bill that could reshape India's energy, climate and national security framework for the next 50 years. So before we dive in, you know what to do. Yes, like, share and subscribe because you will want to stay ahead as this nuclear economy takes shape, just like we predicted with space tech 2 years ago. So well, if you want noise and drama, there are other channels for that. And now, why this is so massive? India wants 100 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2047, up from just 8.8 gigawatt today. At this pace, we cannot get there with government-only reactors. The entire global leadership curve proves it. Here are the numbers. United States, 30% of world output, 80% private. Nuclear is treated as an industry. China, 16% global share, 0% private, entirely state-run. France, 14% share, 100% state-owned. Électricité de France, EDF. Russia, 8%, 100% state control, Rosatom. South Korea, 7%, nearly 100% state controlled, the Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power, KHNP. So as you can pretty much notice, every major nuclear country is either fully state-led or fully private-led. India, locked for 60 years. Central government only. No state government, no private sector, no joint ventures. That era ends now. While inaugurating Skyroot's Infinity Campus, PM Modi dropped the biggest policy bomb of 2025. We are moving toward opening the nuclear sector. We are laying the foundation for a strong role for the private sector in this field too, end quote. And he spelled out exactly what private companies will now be allowed to build. Small modular reactors, SMRs, advanced Gen 3 Plus and Gen 4 reactors, new nuclear innovation, potential private-public power partnerships, commercial reactor components and supply chains. This mirrors what happened in space. We opened space, which gave us 300 plus startups leading to Skyroot, private rocket factories, translating to global investor rush. Now, the same playbook is coming to nuclear energy. This is a once in 60 years shift. The bill aims to modify the Atomic Energy Act 1962, permit private sector participation in nuclear power generation, modernize the liability law, enable partnerships for SMRs, floating reactors, advanced fuels, create India's first competitive nuclear manufacturing ecosystem, attract global technology players, unlock tens of thousands of high-skilled jobs. Evidently, this is the biggest revision of India's nuclear regulatory structure since Homi Bhabha's time. Wow! The future of AI, data centers, semiconductors, and electric vehicles depends on base load clean energy. Solar plus wind is equal to intermittent. Coal is equal to polluting. Hydro is equal to limited. Gas is equal to expensive. Nuclear, on the other hand, is equal to stable, scalable, clean, and long term. And small modular reactors, SMRs, can power all of this. Data centers, industrial clusters, defense installations, remote regions, hydrogen production, EV charging corridors, gigafactories. Russia is already offering India Gen 3 plus VVER 1200 reactors, floating nuclear platforms, and SMRs, as we covered, if you remember, in our India-Russia nuclear future episode. China is building advanced SMRs at record speed. The United States is pushing for private nuclear 2.0 with companies like NewScale, Tata Power, and X Energy. India definitely cannot just sit out of this race. So, what does this mean for India's future? Here it is. With this bill, India can finally build a private nuclear manufacturing industry, attract billions in global investment, fast track AI era energy needs, deploy SMRs across states, build national energy security, reduce dependence on imported fossil fuels, localize high value reactor components, strengthen India's climate commitments. Wow, that's a very brilliant list. Anyway, and now the front page take. This is India's biggest energy reform since independence. Nuclear is the backbone of the AI century, and India just opened the gates for its own nuclear industrial revolution. Space was step 1, semiconductors was step 2, nuclear is step 3, the foundation for a $1 trillion energy tech era. India is finally saying, we will build the reactors of the future, we will build them at scale, and most importantly, we will build them right here. So please, like, share, subscribe, stay ahead of the noise, stay with Front Page by AIM TV. And do, of course, let us know in the comments below. Should India go all in on SMRs or push for full-scale reactors first? Good evening. This is Front Page by AIM Network, India's video-first newsroom for AI, deep tech and national strategy. Tonight, Tata Power is preparing for one of the most ambitious clean energy manufacturing bets India has ever seen. A 10,000 crore rupees, 10 gigawatt ingot and wafer plant potentially coming up in Odisha. A project that could do for solar what Tata's Gujarat fab is doing for semiconductors, which is plug India's last big supply chain vulnerability. So if you're all set, let's break this down. But of course, before that, like, share and subscribe. Yes, it keeps India First AI and tech journalism alive. And now, as promised, here is the breakdown. India has solved many pieces of its clean energy puzzle, which is solar cell capacity equals to growing, module manufacturing leads to growing, grid scale solar is booming, but the weakest link remained the raw material base, which is polysilicon, gives us ingots, which gives us wafers, which gives us cells, which gives us modules. India still imports almost all its ingots and wafers, the core of every solar panel. China controls over 95% of global wafer production. And for years, Indian solar giants have been assembling downstream components while depending heavily on Chinese upstream supply. Tata Power wants to break that dependency, and that too permanently. According to filings and inside sources, 10 gigawatt ingot plus wafer capacity, 10,000 crore rupees investment, backward integration for Tata's 4.55 gigawatt cell and module lines, excess capacity for exports to the Middle East, Europe and APAC. So two possible locations, which is Gopalpur, which is inside Tata Steel SCZ, or Cuttack, port-linked logistics. Both are near eastern coastal ports, perfect for bulk raw material import and global supply dispatch. This is basically industrial scale, global grade, export ready manufacturing. This decision arrives just days after the Union Cabinet approved 7,280 crore rupees rare earth magnets mission, which we broke down earlier on Front Page. So what does that mean? Magnets plus wafers equals to the backbone of electric vehicles, solar parks, grid inverters, defense electronics and semiconductor equipment. India is stitching together its energy, mobility and semiconductor supply chains piece by piece. Rare earth magnets to power EV motors, silicon carbide fabs in Odisha to power EV electronics, Tata's ingot wafer plant to to cut solar dependency. Tata's Gujarat semiconductor fab to localize chip manufacturing, 3D packaging plants, MOSFET plants, advanced SiP facilities across Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Punjab. India's first nuclear foray being evaluated by Tata Power. Odisha is becoming India's new materials capital. Silicon carbide fab approved by the cabinet. 3D glass advanced packaging plant. Tata Steel SCZ in Gopalpur. Strong mineral base, deep water ports and logistics infrastructure. Pro-manufacturing policies and fast-track clearances. Tata Power choosing Odisha fits the exact trend we flagged earlier on front page, which is chip manufacturing is following land, water, logistics and state speed, not just talent. Odisha move fast and the Tatas are responding. So when this plant goes live, this will unveil itself. India becomes wafer independent, a historic milestone reducing reliance on Chinese suppliers. Number 2, solar tariffs fall further. India's renewable becomes globally competitive. Installed capacity already above 80 gigawatt. This accelerates it. Number 3, exports finally open up with wafers plus cells plus modules. India can become a net solar exporter. Number 4, supply chain security. Solar is national security. So, just like semiconductors, just like rare earth magnets, this project closes India's last missing link in the solar value chain. Globally, solar is geopolitical. US, IRA subsidies. European Union, CBAM and solar reshoring. Japan and Korea, diversification. China, cost dominance. India's response is becoming clearer. Build every upstream bottleneck here, not just cells, not just modules, but the core materials that power the entire solar economy. In conclusion, as I'm sure you were waiting for this, the front page take. This is India building independence. A 10,000 crore rupees 10 gigawatt ingot wafer mega facility connected to ports, aligned with the rare earth magnet mission and sitting next to India's new semiconductor materials ecosystem. This is the kind of industrial convergence India hasn't had in decades. And when the world talks energy transition, India is quietly building the supply chain transition. If this plant takes off, which I'm hoping it does, India will power the world's solar panels. And now, we would like to ask you, please do tell us how proud this makes you feel in the comments below. With that, it's time to say goodbye and good night from Front Page on the AIM network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think sovereign, think AIM.